So we covered a little bit of this story last week when Awww Nationalist was on the podcast, and he was discussing some of the government agency operations that were going on behind the scenes that we assume led to this man, the father of the victim, Austin Metcalf, who was recently murdered at the beginning of the month, going out and giving a public statement speaking about how this has nothing to do with race. He doesn't want people online hijacking this story to make it about race. And also stating that he'd already forgiven the man who killed his son, or the boy who killed his son. Now, I watched the full interview, barring the small clips that have been posted around online, and I do think that I and other people have been a little bit unfair to this man. He does seem like he's trying to be genuinely Christian in his response to this. He says explicitly at the beginning that he's in shock with this whole ordeal, and he's trying to hold himself up as the rock for the rest of his family in what is obviously an absolutely awful time. His son died, and his son was murdered and then died in the arms of his twin brother. So absolutely horrible story. I can't imagine how I would react in a situation like this if I was the father. So his reaction is somewhat understandable, being in complete shock, trying to hold the family down. The statement to do with don't make it about race, I've forgiven him, I would assume has something to do with the government agency that we spoke about last Friday. So if you want more of information on that, watch Awww Nationalist's segment that he did for us last week. But I wanted to go over this again so that we could get the actual details of the case down for clarity's sake, because this is a very controversial case. It will carry on. It is quite revealing in the reactions that have been going on, and there are some centrists and some on the centre-right who have tried to make a case for this being self-defence on the part of Carmelo Anthony, who's the alleged murderer in this situation. I do not think so. I think it's pretty open and shut. There is simultaneously a lot to talk about with this case, and not much, because when you follow the chain of cause and effect and the events, it's incredibly simple what has happened. If we hear it straight from the horse's mouth, we have here Hunter Metcalf, the brother of Austin, his twin brother, describing what actually happened at the day when his brother was murdered. Let's hear what he had to say about this.
If you don't mind, what happened?
There was this kid, before I knew his name now, this kid was sitting under our tent at track. We asked him to move. He started getting aggressive and talking reckless. And my brother stepped in and said, "You need to move." He's like, "Make me move." Austin grabbed his backpack. The kid, I tried to whip around as fast as I could, but I didn't see the stab. But then I look at my brother, and then I'm not going to talk about the rest. So yeah. That's just what I saw.
Yeah, pretty horrible chain of events right there. Completely pointless, happened in a split second.
He was murdered.
Yeah, he was murdered. And what he is saying here also seems to corroborate with a lot of the reports which have been taken from the arrest warrant affidavit and the witness reports from the scene. So according to the arrest warrant, Anthony, a Centennial student, was waiting out on a weather delay under a tent designated for Frisco Memorial High School students, where Metcalf attended school when Metcalf told him to move. Now, initially there was a narrative going around trying to say that they had a history with one another and that Metcalf was some kind of bully, and this was retaliation for bullying, or he was just pushed too far. They'd never met one another. That has been confirmed. They were going to two completely different schools. One was going to Frisco Centennial. Metcalf was going to Frisco Memorial. Two different high schools, never met one another, so there was no prior history between these two kids. Complete strangers, and this ended up happening anyway. Anthony allegedly reached inside his bag and said, "Touch me and see what happens." Metcalf then touched him, to which Anthony replied, "Punch me and see what happens." According to the report, Metcalf grabbed Anthony and again told him to move when Anthony pulled out a knife, stabbed Metcalf once in the chest, and ran away. Anthony later told responding officers that he was defending himself, explaining, "He put his hands on me. I told him not to," while crying hysterically, according to the affidavit. The affidavit said that Anthony also asked if Metcalf was going to be okay. It's not included in this article, but he also asked the police, basically the first thing that he asked the police was, "Will this count as self-defense?" So this is confirmed by the affidavit, as they can say. You can see the full arrest report, which has been posted up by Sarah Fields on Twitter. I've read through the whole thing. It corroborates with everything that Hunter Metcalf said and everything that's being reported by outlets like the ones that I was quoting right there. So a horrible situation, and as far as I'm concerned, what it sounds like is that this teenager, Carmelo Anthony, for some reason had a knife on him at a school sporting event, an inter-school sporting event, and decided to try to provoke a situation in which he could stab somebody and try and get away with it as self-defense. Now, that is my opinion. It's based on the reports that I've read, and it's based on the arrest warrant and the witness reports held in it, but that's what I believe has gone on here. He brought a knife to a school event, provoked a situation, stabbed somebody, and thought he could get away with it by saying that this was self-defense. The events have progressed since then. So here's a report from the time. These kinds of tents right here are the ones that they're talking about. These are the ones that, I don't know if we have similar things in the UK, but in the US they have these tents at the sporting events.
I don't remember seeing one, to be honest.
But here we go.
Anthony, who told Frisco police he stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a track meet in self-defense after an altercation, sat in a jail jumpsuit and shackles, while prosecutors challenged how the father could not afford the 10% needed for a $1 million bond, with an online donation fund that's up to $400,000 and growing. With access to over $400,000, why haven't you bonded him out yet? Asked the prosecutor. We don't have access to that money, replied the father.
It's hard for everybody to be level-headed at a time like this, so that's where we come in. It's our job to be level-headed, to be fact-based, and to follow the truth wherever it leads.
And prosecutors revealed today that Carmelo Anthony was involved in an assault-type altercation at his school on February 4th that was handled internally by the school district. Other than that, he has an unblemished record, which is probably one of the reasons why the judge agreed to lower his bond.
Well, that sounds like a reasonable judgment from the judge, doesn't it? Well, other than this one case where he was violent towards another student in his school 2 months ago, he's got an unblemished record, so we'll reduce...
So other than the blemishes.
Yeah, so other than the blemishes and the fact that he's just killed someone, he's basically a straight A perfect student, so we'll lower his bond from $1 million, which you only have to pay 10% of, which is $100,000. And they already had more than enough to pay for it, to $250,000, which means 25 grand instead. So much cheaper for the bond right there. So he was being held in jail. He's now out.
Why would the father not have access to the money raised for him?
Good question. We don't know.
Okay. I suppose that is a good question.
Good question. There's no answer. That's just a good question. Here's the judge that reduced the bond.
He was a good boy, didn't do nothing.
I will say no more on that. Here's some of the statements made by Carmelo Anthony's lawyer, and this is the really important question that they're going to have to answer if they're going to make any kind of self-defense case relating to this, which is, why did he have a knife in school in the first place?
The big question that a lot of people have is, why was this young man armed on school property?
That's an understandable question, but it's not something that, frankly, we're prepared to even go into. This is something that I know the police and the prosecution want to get it right and want to have a full and fair investigation, and so do we. So it would be irresponsible for me or them at this point to start saying, this is what happened, this is why, anything. So I understand that's a big question. It's going to be a big question, and it's something that we will find out, and we ask that the public, as hard as it is, withhold judgment and let both of these families have justice, that let both of these young men, the Metcalf family and the memory of who they've lost, but also Carmelo, have a fair and full justice process.
Floundering.
Why is he acting as if there is an equal amount of victimhood on both sides here?
Well, because he's the defense lawyer, so he's got to represent his clients, and he's got to present this to the public in a way that means that he's trying to get a fair
I didn't
trial.
really mean to phrase it that way, but just I just hate the fact that he's trying to imply that, because I mean
that there is some kind of justice for Carmelo Anthony that doesn't end up with him in prison.
Yeah, that he's the victim of this circumstance is the implication here, and I really despise this.
Again, I think this is why it's such an open and shut case, which is I don't know what kind of argument the defense are going to be able to pull out of their rear end to be able to explain why it is that he brought a knife to school and managed to provoke an altercation with a student that he'd never met before from a completely different school.
Yeah.
There's no getting around that. That's open and shut.
He sounds like he was looking for an excuse.
Yeah, he said, touch me and see what happens.
I brought a knife, I'm just going to pull it out and stab you in the chest and then run off.
He goes under the wrong tent. No, maybe that's just a nothing situation, but they ask him to leave, and then he starts on them, and then escalates the situation, and he knew the entire time.
If you weren't looking for trouble, why didn't you just go, oh, I'm in the wrong tent, sorry?
Yeah.
Come on.
But we have the reports now from this. Minister Dominique Alexander. Carmelo is safe at home. Now, this is after, obviously, he was walked out of the jail, and the news reporters were following along behind him, asking questions, very reasonable questions, like, why did you have a knife on you? How are you going to explain that as self-defense? He refused to say anything. Something that we always notice about these kinds of killers is the dead eyes. They always share the same expression when you see them in photographs, and this statement was, this moment is a reminder that a community united can never be divided. Interesting the kinds of figures that they unite around. The journey ahead is long, but today we celebrate a victory for justice, for family, and for the power of people coming together to protect our youth. Nobody came around to protect Austin Metcalf. Nobody except his brother stuck around to protect him. I hate to do it, but if the shoe was on the other foot, there wouldn't be the same community coming around Austin Metcalf if the roles had been reversed here. It's interesting how it's always that a particular community rallies around murderers.
So, do you know anything about this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I'll let you.
Don't worry. I decided to do a little bit of looking into this Dominique Alexander guy, and he has got quite the background on him. Obviously, you can tell just straight away, Minister of Justice, Political, Civil and Human Rights activist, president and founder of the Next Gen Action # Black Lives Matter. So you can tell straight away
he's got skeletons in his closet.
That this guy is a race grifter of the highest order. But then I saw other people underneath remarking on his background and decided to do a little digging of myself. And man, this guy's history goes back quite far. So first of all, in 2021, he had a family violence charge dismissed against him. So you would you would assume that he didn't do nothing. He didn't do nothing, obviously. But according to the report, he was arrested in 2019 in connection to two family violence assault charges in April 2019. He was charged with one felony and one misdemeanor after he was accused of shoving and attempting to strangle his former partner. And according to the Dallas Morning News, his former partner signed an affidavit saying she would not testify or participate in the case, adding she felt betrayed by the way the Dallas Police Department handled it, which does not mean that he did not do it. It just means that their case fell apart when she said she wouldn't testify. And as an activist in Dallas, 31-year-old Alexander speaks on behalf of families of victims of violence and has been a leader of protests in the city. Alexander organized protests denouncing the shooting of Botham Jean by Amber Geiger, and he participated in protests in Dallas over police brutality in summer 2020. So he's obviously got a background to him. He's organized a lot of protests. What else has he done? Well, he's been arrested on felony theft charges back in 2017, where they say in here, the deputies arrested Next Generation Action Network. Wait, let me just double check that name because I want to just double check something. So now he's Next Generation Action. Let's just double check that. Next Generation Action Network. I just want to make sure that the name's always... Yeah, Next Generation Action Network, because he's known to shift the names of his organization every so often as soon as people start to ask him for his tax returns.
That's how you know he's honest.
Oh, yeah. But he was arrested at his home in North Dallas on theft charges stemming from a 2016 dispute from a lawyer. Police took Alexander to county jail, where he was booked and released in $1,500 bail. Alexander is best known for organizing the July 7th, 2016 police brutality protest where a gunman opened fire on law enforcement personnel. He told the Dallas Observer that he was being charged in that case because of his notoriety on Dallas's protest scene. So that ended up getting 5 police officers shot.
Oh, that's that one.
Some killed. Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah,
remember
this guy organised that protest. Not that I would judge him for the actions of a crazed gunman at a protest.
Yeah, the gunman apparently had watched a lot of the Young Turks. And so a lot of people were saying, well, Cenk, this is your guy. But I think that's a really unfair thing to do. It's, Cenk isn't arguing for that. So
let's see what else he's been up to in his time on the public scene. So according to court records, Next Generation Action Network leader Dominique Alexander pleaded guilty in a felony theft case and was given 2 days credit for time already served. He faced up to 20 years in prison for the theft charge. So one thing you'll notice with this guy is he keeps getting arrested for crimes and then basically given no time in prison for it. According to a Facebook post made by the 32-year-old, he claimed he was innocent and pleaded guilty to charges to avoid going to court because he would not have faced a fair trial. Isn't that convenient? After 4 years of this hanging over my head, I decided to avoid a jury trial in Trump County that wouldn't have given me a fair shot at all. The Dallas Observer revealed that Alexander was charged with theft of property between $2,500 and $30,000, according to an August indictment. The theft stemmed from a credit card processing company deal that went bad. The punishment for the offense officially includes a fine and 6 months to 2 years in prison. However, penalties were enhanced because Alexander had been previously convicted, another one, of felony forgery charges in January 2013 in Dallas County. He was also arrested and charged with felony injury of a child in 2009.
This is the one I saw. Apparently he gave a child brain damage or something.
It doesn't go into any more detail on what happened to the child, but
I saw people posting other things about this guy. Apparently the kid had detached retinas and brain damage.
Jesus Christ. Well, for that, he received probation.
Jesus.
According to the Dallas Observer, he violated the probation several times.
Oh, what a surprise.
But nothing ever happened. When eventually
Ignore all those blemishes on his record, he's got a clear record.
Yeah, when eventually he was convicted of a number of things that was supposed to get him 2 years in prison because he'd already spent 2 years on probation, that was counted as time served, even though he violated his probation numerous times.
This guy's such an easy ride.
That's a good question. Perhaps it's judges like this one who decided to lower the bail for Carmelo Anthony. What were you going to say, Lewis?
I don't actually know what to say, if I'm totally honest. It's just,
It's funny that this guy ends up in this case and designates himself as a spokesperson for the defense and decides to start trying to help with the legal case as well. Yeah, birds of a feather, but if you ask me, this is not the kind of guy I'd want backing me up. Doesn't exactly make you look particularly innocent.
I honestly, right, I'm kind of thinking there might be a kind of ethnic interest network that's operating in this area.
I have to agree.
That's kind of what it looks like.
Also, there are allegations of corruption within his foundation. There are
shock.
Yeah, I know.
Can't believe that.
Numerous statements from this woman, Sarah Fields, saying that he has done this thing quite a few times where he will continually subtly change the name of the organization whenever they start having to file with the IRS. They've only filed twice with the particular foundation that they're using now. When they get the status revoked, a new one is started. So it seems to be allegations of tax fraud.
Basically a black Saul Goodman.
Nowhere near as charismatic or intelligent.
Well, yeah, okay, fine.
Charming. I mean, the sleaziness is there.
Yeah.
The sleaziness is there. But also Saul Goodman, if I'm rewatching at the moment, never beats a child.
That's true.
He does support a man who poisons children, but, that's one degree of separation.
He personally doesn't render a child unconscious with brain damage.
Yes. But Carmelo Anthony's newly hired attorney, Kim T. Cole, also is Dominique's attorney as well. In a recent press conference, he spoke as Carmelo's advocate, stating that the bond was too damn high.
Can I not have someone else as my advocate? Like this guy, do I have to have this guy?
Well, I mean, I don't know, because he seems to have done a lot of shady stuff in the past, been convicted for it, and still got off with basically no prison time. So maybe you do want this guy in your corner.
This is the thing. You remember the Jussie Smollett stuff, right? And how nothing really came of that for Jussie Smollett, even though he should have gone to jail and stuff like that. This kind of ethnic advocacy network that is embedded in the legal system and has this kind of closed circle where Kamala Harris is related to it and stuff like this. This is what it feels like. I've got, I don't know that that's the case, but
It's definitely a network of people who all share the same interests, looking out for each other's backs.
But I suspect they might be personally involved. I mean, like I said, I can't prove anything, but this is what it smells like to me.
But he's also already started lying about the case and trying to distort the details of it. So he said that Carmelo Anthony said to Austin Metcalf, "Don't put your hands on me." When we all know from the police report what actually happened was he said, "Put your hands on me and see what happens." Two very different statements with two very different meanings to them, because what he actually said was an invitation to start trouble. He said, "Come try me," is essentially what he said. Let's see him talk, and see what a charming speaker he is.
Carmelo Anthony, from the beginning, has continued to display his self-defense claim. And I believe that in America, I always tell this, and I'm just going to speak truth to power in this situation. It is crazy that America tells us to accept the self-defense claim of George Zimmerman, Kyle Rittenhouse, and so many other people. But when the shoe is on the other foot, that claim is absurd. And I just gotta call a spade, no matter what my personal views of a case may be. It is quite contradicting for America to come back and say, oh, Kyle Rittenhouse can have it, George Zimmerman can have it. All of these individuals that don't look like the color of my skin can't have it. In the state of Texas, we live in the state.
Sorry, that was really insane.
You can walk around with the permanent.
Yeah, I think that's about enough of that.
Yeah, I can't.
Eye rolling, sighing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's clearly a race grifter. He sounds actually mentally handicapped. I don't know if I'd want him speaking on my defense, but but this is the kind of narrative that they're trying to push, that, well, Kyle Rittenhouse got self-defense, George Zimmerman got self-defense, it's only because of the color of his skin that he's not getting the same fair treatment, even though the circumstances are completely different. We had footage of Kyle Rittenhouse that showed him clearly defending himself. The actual reports of what happened with George Zimmerman show that he was clearly defending himself. Also, the loads of wounds that he was covered in, because he was assaulted before he shot, I forget the name of the one that he shot, but either way,
Which one? Kyle Rittenhouse or
George Zimmerman. All of these cases end up being the same, and now they're trying to flip the script and trying to make it again a race grifter narrative. Also, some more background information on him. So,
Trayvon Martin, just
thank you.
I'd forgotten as well.
So this was interesting. So he was detained back in 2020, by the looks of it, at a county jail, and then all of a sudden a load of his supporters started to march at the county jail and start protesting and such, as you would expect.
Criminal race grifters. If you associate with a criminal race grifter, I'm going to assume you are a criminal race grifter.
Yeah. Speaking of associations with criminal race grifters, here's Kim T. Cole, who's his attorney, hanging out with that annoying senator or congresswoman, Jasmine Crockett, that you see the clips of.
Just like Jussie Smollett and Kamala Harris. I swear to God, these are kind of like ethnic interest networks that go from the activist to the legal system to the political system.
So what we're finding is that this woman who is elected in the United States government, who has many, many clips of her going all sassy against her Republican opponents for being racist and other such accusations, is directly associated, or at least has photographs with these people, which is very, very interesting when you talk about the ethnic interest networks that are being set up. Speaking of which, his defense attorneys are going to be joined by Carmelo's two best friends, Dindu and Nothing. And that is the entire community, or at least a large community, all ganging around him to defend him and try to continue this argument of self-defense. Like this post by Mike Baggs, that's got 13,000 likes, 2.2 million views, trying to quote penal code from Texas, saying that, he had the right to use force to protect himself when he reasonably believed it was necessary to prevent imminent harm. There is such a thing as reasonable force in a case like this. Proportionality. He brought a knife. There's the mitigating circumstances of the fact that he seemed to provoke the incident in the first place.
Well, hang on, go back up a sec.
Yep.
So he says it there. He was within his rights to feel that a knife might be necessary means of self-defense. If
he brought the knife
to protect himself from the use of deadly force or serious harm, there was just no reason to think. Yeah, there was just no reason to think that there was the threat of deadly force or serious harm.
Yeah. But they're going to make this argument anyway when you start to point out all of the holes in it. They don't care. They will continue to regroup and rally around this case because they have seen that one of their own is in trouble and they do not care about any of the circumstances. A large group of these people do not care about any of the circumstances. They just see one of my own is being arrested. I must protect him. I have to get him off because he didn't do nothing wrong. And if he did, Whitey deserved it because they be racist.
It's not just that, he's a payday. They raise money on the back of this.
Well, also, this one was particularly interesting because immediately underneath he shares this picture of a knife saying, honestly, right now is a perfect time to get one of these. I mean, if you ask me, that looks like incitement to violence.
Yeah.
Personally, that's what I take from this.
Utterly tasteless at best.
Yes. And he also leaves a link further down, a link to the Help Carmelo official fund. Let's see what it's up to now. $442,000, where they state that, they say, they've had to change the description since yesterday. So yesterday it said, this is the official support fund for Carmelo and his family during this challenging and difficult time. The narrative being spread is false, unjust, and harmful. As a family of faith, we're deeply grateful for all of your support during this trying period. Your prayers and assistance mean more to us now than ever. And now they are trying to change it again to specify this is not the bail fund. This is not the bail fund. This is to help us with the legal defense and everything else. You can also see here all of the comments left by the recent donations. So Black Excellence, $100, nothing, just donating again. The more these hateful whites show their insecurities and fragilities of losing dominance, sending love, light, and justice to King Carmelo, speaking full exoneration over, so when they see a case of someone clearly provoking a situation where they get to stab and murder a white kid, when you arrest them and try and bring them to justice over it, they say that this is injustice. This is oppression. This is us being fragile, insecure, of losing our dominance.
Being murdered. I don't want my kids murdered.
Anonymous giver, praying for you at this time. May God provide all the strength that you need. No weapon formed against you shall pass. People leaving Bible quotes. God, please shower this young man and his family with blessings and favor. He's a murderer. He's a murderer. Yeah. I'm donating it again after seeing the need for additional protection and expenses. These crackers need to understand that we are not our ancestors, and they will reap what they sow. So it's the same narrative. You made us slaves, so this is payback. This is revenge.
Right.
Fantastic. Towards housing and security. You've got other ones as well. So first of all, interestingly enough, I double-checked this. This judge, Angela Tucker, she's Republican.
Oh, is she?
She's Republican. And then you get comments like this from Raheem saying, everyone around me is surprised that I support this fund because I'm a black conservative, but look at what word came first. Black. I'm black first.
Thanks, Raheem.
That's a fantastic example of tribalism, unthinking tribalism right there. Although, like you say, there's also a payday in it. And if you're going to talk about a payday, let's talk about the Anthony family getting their $400,000 legal defense fund, more than enough to pay the 10%, $100,000 bail to get him out of jail. But no, they needed that reduced even more because what they're actually going to do. They're going to say the prosecutors asked his father, Andrew Anthony, why he couldn't use the more than $415,000 in donated funds for his son's defense to pay the original $1 million bond. Just 10% of that amount had to be paid. Andrew Anthony said instead the fund was to be used for his legal defense, but he also disclosed that the cash would be used for security and to help the family move homes after the threats they've allegedly faced since the killing, because supposedly they've been doxxed. The revelation comes after a spokesperson said the family can't leave their home after the address was leaked online, leading to graphic and racist threats. But also, again, you have to wonder why they need all of this financial help in the first place, given that they were already living in a $900,000 gated community home.
Jesus.
They already had plenty of money. $3,500 per month was the rent for this. Yeah.
Mansion.
Look at that. Wow.
They live in a McMansion
Jesus Christ.
already. And now they're getting another McMansion with the money that people keep sending to them. So it really does just seem like, to me, what's happened is their son, for no reason, provoked a situation, murdered a white kid, and now the family, through massive support from black race grifters online, is being funded to get a huge payday from it.
Yeah, it kind of looks that way.
Mm-hmm.
Can you live in a civilization where this is acceptable? No. Can you live around people that think that this kind of behavior is not only acceptable, but justifiable? No. They will literally fund and reward this behavior.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.